Oh, I set out to really impress you today. I'll tell you what. So I was going to use the IM30 or IA32 Godox. It is a nice little flash. I'll get that out of the way. And I was going to use the little flash to set this off because it has the S1 and S2, optical remote. I tried it in optical mode first. It was a disappointment. I don't know what it is. Even with turn it towards me and all that kinds of, it just didn't work. It was too hit and miss. So that was a disappointment because I was like, when I played with this at home, I thought, oh, this is pretty good. But, I was close, you know. Anyway, maybe if you're doing a handheld, this would work. But otherwise, I'm just not the hit and miss. I can't recommend it for that. I was going to use the whole shoot for this and try to impress the hell out of you with two little lights. I got so frustrated. I said, okay, I'm going to show you some photos with it. This is what it does. And now let's move on. So then we moved on to the two V100s. I used the small 28-inch softbox with the V100, and I used the backlight with the V100. A simple light setup that everybody can do. Anyway, rather than talking about it, let's get into the shoot and I'll explain it as we're doing the shoot. Yeah, there's still fog in here. It's just like I woke up or something. At the end, I used some fog. I used the Ninja fog thing. Let me just show you. Now, this is the second one out of the three that I have that I tried. The first one was complete garbage. I'm not going to give you the name because I don't want to destroy a company like that. I would rather say, hey, this is the one I like. Now, this one and another one are two great ones. And I may like the other one just a little bit more. But this is a very, very good unit. It did the job. The only issue I had is it overheated a little bit quicker than I thought it would. And every time it fell off the little stand, even a foot tall, it would just stop. I had to play with it to get it work again. So I don't know about longevity of this. Other than that, it did work fine. It is a small unit, and it produces good fog. That's all I have to say about it. Let's look at the photos and see what it can do. Anyway, thanks for watching as always. Let's get to the shoot.
Now, the first thing, the IA32, I love this little flash. I think it's a great little flash. I love that it has the built-in internal tilt mechanism where you can bounce it. Obviously, it's a smaller flash, so the bounce is going to be that powerful, but it'll still work. And if you have a longer lens versus these little tiny ones that fit right on top of the camera, this will solve that problem with, without casting a shadow because it's up higher. But it is a nice little flash. And it runs on 2 AA batteries. Obviously your recycling is not going to be that great. Now, this off camera with this little flash, the optical slave, I mean, you can see it's beautiful light, but the optical slave just isn't that good on any of the new models. Like the old optical slaves were like, it was like a clear LED nub, and it would just see light everywhere. I could have the light behind her and it would go off. With these new ones, they have to be at the perfect angle, the perfect conditions. I even turned that small little flash up all the way just to make sure it would fire, and it was still hit and miss. But I wanted to show you what it looked like off camera because it is nice light, and if that worked the way I expected it to, it would have been fantastic to have in your bag, even with your regular flashes as, fill light somewhere or ambient light, environmental light, if you will. Now on camera, it works great. There's no issues with this whatsoever. It is manual. It's a single pin, so that means it'll work on any camera. Yes, it'll work on Sony, Leica, Nikon, anything. It just works. And, the power level's easy to control, and, the screen's, clear as day, 1/28 all the way up to full power. It just works. So I do highly recommend this flash for people that want that smaller flash but can't have those little nubs because of the longer lenses. So that being said, I didn't want to waste this whole shoot on, the hit and miss with this, and I didn't want to do completely on camera. So I switched over to the two Godox V100s. And I'm using that flip 28-inch. It doesn't matter if you're using the angler or an umbrella. It does, really it doesn't, because I'm not using any kind of grid or anything. I just decided to use this because it was out, and I figured, it's already out. Might as well use it. So I'm going to do one quick photo here without the second light. On the side of her head, I mean, the photo's fine. And this is the great one light system that I always use. I think it's fantastic. With somebody with dark hair, obviously I use a rim light more, but I wanted to add in the second light with this, because I know a lot of you want to take it a step further and add those second lights. Now, this time, instead of a rim light, I'm going to use it as the backlight to light that backdrop. When you have light fall off, because it is a little bit of distance from her and I'm feathering it, it's not going to be white, the backdrop, and I wanted a white backdrop. So here's the kicker with this light. If I'm zoomed out a little bit further, and I did retouch the backdrop in Photoshop on that one, just because the fall off is a lot greater with the V100s. It is a tighter beam, even at the wide angle. You can see the fall off a little bit more. They made that reflector a little tighter. As you can see here, it's just a little tighter to boost the power, I guess, to give it that 100 watt second rating. It's okay, and it works fine, and you can fix this in Photoshop and make that whole thing white. But if I want full coverage on the backdrop, I'm either going to switch over to the 8200 bare bulb, or I need to, position this differently so I have more room for this light to travel. So that's what I did next. I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to throw one of those bounce cards on it to keep the light off of her, because if I just had this bare, it would definitely hit her. So adding that little reflector card and positioning it in the correct way, I'm going to get a larger spread. It still wasn't, completely covering the white backdrop. So obviously I had to whiten up in Photoshop or in Lightroom, it doesn't matter which one you use, a little bit more to give an even white spread. And that's what I had to do with most of these. But this helped quite a bit because I wanted full coverage on her so I wouldn't have to go into her or into her hair to get that look. Because it's a lot easier when you're not dealing with hair and body parts. You just have to deal with around her and out to get the white coverage. So that worked out pretty well. And these cards, like I said, I use these in the last shoots. They're really, really handy, and you can use them for a lot. You just play with the adjustment of it and, figure out what your coverage is, and then make sure she's covered completely, the body's covered completely, her head, and then outside of that ring, you can just do that quick in Photoshop to whiten up the rest. Now, these still have a tiny vignette on them, especially up by her head, because of the angle of the flash and the height of the flash. But I wanted, full coverage, so this is the best I could do. Down by the legs, again, it's falling off a little bit. The bare bulb would just cover her completely. And I don't mind putting it off to the side like this. If I had two, one on either side of her, I think that would work better. But I wanted to play with this and see if I can do it just with one light, because a lot of people don't want to have a 3-light setup or don't have the room for 2 lights on either side of her for the backdrop, which, it really is a pain. But I'm actually searching for my gels. I'm going to throw a gel on here. Now, I don't use gels a lot, and when I do use gels, I use a gray backdrop. Gels will light a gray backdrop much better than white will or black will. The gray, the neutral gray with a gel on it really shows the color pretty well. White backdrops, it gets washed out a little bit. Again, you can bring that down in post. That's not a problem. But so the first one I'm trying is the blue gel. And, after pulling it up, on the camera, I just hated it. It was not working with this outfit. So I'm going to try a red gel, and if I have the red gel on here, it's not going to match her top. And I just didn't know. So I figured, give it a try, see what it looks like. It was nice. It's much better than the blue. I'll give you that. But it came out like a little purplish. It may not have been the red. Anyway, it just didn't work for me. So I personally like the white. I shoot a lot of white and a little bit of black. But, colors, sometimes they work fantastic. You see them, they're just perfect. I like the color backdrops over the gels personally. And if I'm going to use a gel, I like to spill it on them just a little bit. But I use that card so it wouldn't spill on them. Anyway, I went back to the white because I'm loving that. Now that 28 speed box, you can see the angle that it's at, and it is feathering across her. But I personally like a little bit of a harder light, so I'm going to move that back towards her just a little bit more, to get that, heavy pop on her left side. I like that kind of look because I like that shadowing and so forth. But again, it's up to you, and it's just literally that one move that can completely change the look of the image. Just angle it and do it purposefully. Don't do this inch by inch because that's really not going to matter. I notice a lot of photographers, they'll take a shot and they'll move it an inch and take another shot and move it another inch. Just put it over there. This light, it doesn't have a grid on it. It's not going to make that big of a difference. It's just when you put it over there, it's going to give you that look. When you put it back and feather it, it's going to give you that softer look again. So, don't fiddle with your lights that much, especially during a shoot like this. Practicing, that's one thing, but if you're actually with a client, don't do it. Now, I'm just lowering the lights because we wanted to get some floor shots. And obviously, retouching had to be done in Photoshop on these because I have that seam behind her and I wanted a smooth look on the backdrop. And again, I'm feathering. Now, the first couple of shots, that light was just a little low. And you can see like it's almost like an uplight because it's bouncing off the white floor and then going up into her face, and the light was set low anyway. So I raised it up just a hair and turned it even more out from her so it would feather across her. And you can see it's just a little bit lighter look, softer look, and it's not like shooting upwards like that, Halloween thing with a flashlight. I hate that look. And sometimes, like, photographers use that look with the uplight, and it looks fantastic. I just never been able to create that I like it that much. That's with a silver reflector coming up from underneath somebody. Sometimes it just looks like it's too much of an uplight, and it's scary to me. I don't know. Maybe it's a childhood thing. Anyway, the floor shots, I think they come out great, and I love this, two lights set up like this. This worked better for the backlight, because it was lower, and it had that floor and wall to bounce off of, so the backlight gave me an evener spread. Now, I'm on the black backdrop. I'm not going to light that, so I'm using that as the hair or rim light. Again, I put that grid on it and the card. The card is preventing it from hitting the backdrop because I don't want to light the black and turn it gray. So I'm using that bounce card, to bounce it towards her. It worked out great. I did turn down that light so it's not so harsh because it looks odd if it's like too hot on her hair. You have those extreme highlights on her hair or on the side of her face. And I do it a couple times, I'll mess that up. Now, I'm shooting in manual on all these because I want to control with all this. And the whole shoot was done with manual on the V100s. And it worked out pretty good. It was, it was fun. Now, for this, I really wanted to show this Ninja because I've been using this a long time. And like I said, I have 3 of them that I've been using a long time. It's down to the Ninja and another one, and I'll show the other one in another shoot. I like the other one a little bit better, but I wouldn't say no to the Ninja. It's that other one was just a horrible piece of machinery. It would spit out hot oil. It was cheap. Well, I'll just put it that way. So if it's cheap, don't buy it because it's crap. Now, every time this always happens to me when I start using fog, the heater comes on and I have, forced air in the studio. So I can't control the fog. It just happens to me every single time. You need perfectly still air if you want that fog going where you want it to go. And I'm always, brushing away the fog from in front of her because that's going to give you horrible lighting. So just get it away from in front of her. It's a small studio that fog has nowhere to go. So if I fan it away from the front of her, I don't care that it's behind her. I can add more fog behind her, and then I added a blue gel this time. Now, light behind fog is what's going to make fog look good. In front of fog, it doesn't really make it look good, or you can really see it turns gray. So you want to light it from behind. And the last shot I light from underneath. I actually put the flash on the floor with the blue gel and, shut it up that way. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the shoot. If you have any questions, leave them below.